America calls itself a land of riders, but your odds on a motorcycle here are the worst in the developed world. The per-mile fatality rate is 10 times higher than Japan or Italy, with 6,300 deaths last year alone. That statistic is not about bad luck or reckless riders. The system is stacked against you from day one by design. Training, culture, and industry all set up ordinary riders to fail. But why is it this way? And who profits when skill takes a back seat to sales? That is the question this documentary is about to answer. Motorcycle fatalities in the United States don't just outpace the rest of the developed world, they leave it in the dust. The numbers are cold, but the reality is brutal. For every 100 million miles traveled, American riders are killed at a rate of 31.39. In Japan and Italy, that same figure drops below 3. Motorcycles make up less than 1% of vehicles on American roads, but account for 15% of all traffic deaths. Over 6,300 riders lost their lives last year, the highest total ever recorded. In states like Texas and Florida, more than 13 out of every 10,000 registered motorcycles end in a fatal crash each year. These are not just outliers, they are the pattern. A National Highway Traffic Safety Administration analyst once put it bluntly, "We measure risk per mile, not per registration, because exposure tells the real story. And in America, the story is always the same. Riders pay the price for a system that sells them short. The scale of loss is not random. It is the predictable outcome of a system that treats skill as optional and survival as a matter of luck." The odds are not just bad, they are baked in from the start. In the United States, the system is built to treat riders as customers first and survivors second. The moment you decide to ride, you are handed a set of rules and choices that look like freedom but function as a trap. Training is sold as a box to check, not a path to mastery. The culture pushes image and ego, not skill. The industry markets nostalgia and horsepower, not safety or real-world utility. Every piece of the puzzle is designed for profit and convenience, not competence. That is why, despite your best efforts, the deck is stacked against you from day one. The problem is not just the number of deaths, it is the system that guarantees them. To understand how we got here, we have to break down the 3 failures that define American riding. The training scam that lets inexperience buy power, the cultural lie that turns motorcycles into toys, and the industry betrayal that sells dreams instead of progress. Each one is a trap, and together they make the average rider disposable. It is not about blaming individuals, it is about exposing a system that sets you up to fail. The path to a motorcycle license in America is deceptively simple. In most states, passing the basic rider course from the Motorcycle Safety Foundation is enough to earn a full endorsement. The course itself runs just 16 to 20 hours, often packed into a single weekend. For many, this is the only formal training they will ever receive. No further road test is required, no demonstration of skill on public streets. The certificate you get at the end is not a badge of mastery, it is a ticket to ride anything you can afford, regardless of experience. Inside the classroom, the Motorcycle Safety Foundation instructor covers the basics: throttle control, braking, shifting, and a few low-speed maneuvers. There is a focus on safety gear and hazard awareness, but the real-world complexity of traffic, unpredictable drivers, and emergency situations are left for riders to discover on their own. As one instructor puts it, Motorcycle Safety Foundation gives you the endorsement, not competency. The curriculum was designed as an introduction, not a finish line. Yet for most Americans, it becomes exactly that. The consequences are easy to trace. A new rider, fresh from a weekend course, can legally walk into a dealership and buy a machine producing over 100 horsepower. There is no legal requirement for further instruction, no mandated progression, and no system to check if the rider has ever practiced a panic stop at speed. In Europe and Japan, things work differently. New riders are restricted to lower-powered bikes, 125 cubic centimeters or 250 cubic centimeters, sometimes for years. Progression to larger, faster motorcycles depends on time, additional training, and passing practical exams. Each stage is a gate that builds real skill and respect for the risks involved. In the US, those gates do not exist. The result is a false sense of security. Riders leave the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course with a certificate in the belief that they are ready for anything the road can throw at them. The system encourages this illusion. There are no reminders, no incentives, and no affordable, accessible options for advanced street training. The message is clear: you are done. You are good enough. But the reality is that most riders are left dangerously unprepared for the demands of real-world riding. The box is checked, but the education has barely begun. Inside the American motorcycle dealership, the real transaction is not just about horsepower or chrome. It is about financing. The business model runs on loans, not rider safety. Dealers are paid to move inventory, and the most profitable sales are the biggest, most expensive bikes, paired with the longest loans and the most add-ons. A new rider, fresh from a weekend course, can walk in with a certificate and walk out on a 1,200 cubic centimeters machine and a 7-year loan. Down payments are often just $500 or $1,000. Loan terms stretch to 72 months or even 84 months. The finance manager, not the salesperson, is the most important person in the building. Their job is to maximize the loan, bundle in service contracts, warranties, and accessories, and push the buyer to the edge of what the bank will approve. The bigger the loan, the bigger the commission. Dealerships routinely tack on thousands in additional dealer markup, ADM, above the sticker price, especially on high-demand or oversized models. Protection packages, maintenance plans, and extended warranties are pitched as essentials, not options. Each add-on inflates the financed amount, and the buyer often leaves owing more than the bike is worth. For a first-time rider, the pressure is subtle but relentless. Sales scripts are designed to nudge new buyers toward bigger bikes. You will outgrow that 300 cubic centimeters in a month, or it is safer to have extra power for the highway. The risk of overbiking is not mentioned. Instead, the focus is on monthly payments. It is only $239 a month, not on the skills needed to handle the machine. Manufacturer incentives, seasonal bonuses, and volume targets all reward dealerships for moving high-dollar units. Some brands offer cash to dealers for every large displacement bike sold above a monthly quota. The result is a showroom culture that treats experience as irrelevant. A 25-year-old with a brand new license can finance a 900 cubic centimeters or 1,100 cubic centimeters motorcycle with minimal scrutiny. The paperwork includes waivers and disclosures, but few questions about riding history or comfort level. The sale is structured to maximize profit, not match the rider to a safe, manageable machine. Insurance data confirms the cost. New riders on large bikes have crash rates nearly double those of their peers on smaller machines. Negative equity is common after a crash, as the loan often exceeds the bike's value. Yet the system keeps churning. The dealership trap is built on the illusion of freedom, but the real freedom belongs to the finance manager, who decides what you will ride and how much you will pay. For the average American rider, the path from the classroom to the crash site often runs straight through the finance office. In much of the United States, a rider looking to grow beyond basic skills faces a dead end. Advanced, street-focused training is not just rare, it is a patchwork of expensive, hard-to-find courses scattered across the map. In states like Montana or Mississippi, the nearest advanced clinic might be more than 100 miles away. Even in regions with higher population, open enrollment slots fill up months in advance. The typical cost for a single day of advanced instruction runs from $250 to $500, with no guarantee of insurance discounts or state support. For many, that price tag is higher than a month's bike payment. The scarcity is not just about geography or money. There is a widespread belief that advanced training belongs on racetracks or is only for sport bike riders. Street-focused courses that teach real-world emergency braking, low-speed maneuvers, and collision avoidance are often overlooked or dismissed as unnecessary. The system reinforces this neglect by offering no reminders, no incentives, and no clear path for riders to keep learning. For most, the last formal lesson ends with the Motorcycle Safety Foundation certificate. Independent trainers see the fallout every week. One advanced instructor describes a steady stream of calls from riders who went years without touching a training range. Many admit they never practiced a panic stop at speed until they crashed or came close. The stories repeat: a close call, a loss of control, and the realization that the skills needed to survive were not covered in a weekend class. The gap between basic and advanced training leaves riders unprepared for the demands of real traffic, unpredictable drivers, and split-second decisions. The lack of accessible, affordable advanced training is not an accident. It is a product of a system that treats skill as an afterthought. There are no mandated refresher courses, no required progression, and little public investment in making high-quality instruction available outside a handful of urban centers. For the average American rider, the path to real competence is blocked by distance, Quiztun, and a culture that says, if you pass the test, you are done. The result is a nation of riders who are told they are ready, but left to fend for themselves when it matters most. A typical American motorcycle racks up just 3,000 to 3,500 miles a year. That is less than a quarter of the average car's mileage, and a fraction of what riders in Italy or Japan put on their bikes. In those countries, motorcycles are built for the daily grind, commuting, errands, rain or shine. Here, they are a weekend luxury. The median price for a new street bike in the United States now tops $13,000. That is not the price of a practical vehicle. It is the price of a status symbol, a toy for the garage. This gap between cost and use is more than a financial oddity. It is a practice gap, and it shapes every skill American riders do or do not develop. When a motorcycle is a toy, it sits idle most days. The rider's experience is measured in hours per month, not miles per week. Compare that to the commuter archetype in Rome or Tokyo, whose 125 cubic centimeter scooter clocks 8,000 miles a year, weaving through city traffic, rain, and gridlock. For them, riding is second nature, not a special occasion. In the United States, the high price and low mileage reinforce each other. The sticker shock pushes buyers toward long-term loans and big, flashy models they barely use. The lack of daily riding means skills plateau fast, and the bike becomes a prop, washed on Saturdays, shown off at meets but rarely used as actual transportation. This is not about individual choices. It is the logical result of a culture and market that sell motorcycles as luxuries, not necessities. The average American does not get the repetition, the muscle memory, or the confidence that comes from riding every day. Instead, the system produces riders who are under-practiced, over-invested, and exposed to risk every time they throw a leg over the seat. Lane filtering, slipping between lanes of stopped or slow-moving cars, remains illegal in nearly every U.S. state. Only California fully permits it, while Utah, Arizona, and Montana allow limited filtering at low speeds when traffic is stopped. Everywhere else, the law treats the practice as reckless or outright criminal, despite overwhelming evidence from abroad and from California's own roads. In 2015, a UC Berkeley study found that when motorcycles are allowed to filter, rear-end collisions drop by 40%. In California, state agencies have tracked fewer severe injuries for riders who filter responsibly, especially in gridlock traffic. Yet for most Americans, the system blocks this simple, proven safety measure. The consequences play out at every red light. When filtering is banned, riders are forced to wait between cars, exposed and invisible, right in the path of distracted drivers. Rear-end collisions are a leading cause of serious motorcycle injuries at intersections. Filtering is not just about convenience, it is about survival. In Europe and much of Asia, filtering is not only legal, but expected. It is built into the flow of daily traffic, reducing congestion and keeping riders out of harm's way. In the US, the refusal to adopt these rules is a policy choice that puts riders at unnecessary risk. Infrastructure hostility does not end at filtering laws. Most American cities offer no dedicated motorcycle parking and no tax incentives for choosing a bike over a car. In places like Tokyo or Milan, motorcycles enjoy reduced tolls, reserved spaces, and direct benefits that treat them as legitimate vehicles. Here, the message is clear. Motorcycles are an inconvenience to be tolerated, not a mode of transit to be encouraged. Policy planners have the data and the global examples, but the system continues to ignore them. The result is a riding environment that is not just indifferent, but actively hostile, reinforcing the idea that motorcycles are toys, not tools. For the American rider, every trip means navigating a system that is designed for someone else's safety, not yours. Stereotypes shaped the American rider long before the first ignition. Sociologists studying motorcycle culture point to two images that dominate the national imagination: the reckless squid, darting through traffic in a t-shirt and sneakers, and the leather-clad pirate, chasing a midlife fantasy on a chrome-laden cruiser. Both are caricatures, but they leave little room for the idea of a skilled, everyday motorcyclist. This absence is not accidental. Media coverage, advertising, and even policy debates recycle these extremes, reinforcing the idea that motorcycles are either dangerous toys or props for personal reinvention. Dr. Eric Anderson, who researches masculinity and consumer culture, notes that the big bike real man narrative is as much a product of advertising as it is of tradition. Decades of marketing have sold power and size as proof of maturity, pushing riders to equate engine displacement with self-worth. Smaller practical bikes are dismissed as training wheels or women's models. The result is a culture where ego and image matter more than skill or safety. New riders feel pressure from peers, from sales staff, and from the larger mythos to buy up, not to build up their abilities. This cycle feeds itself. When the public sees only the extremes, any proposal to make riding safer, whether legalizing lane filtering or investing in better training, gets drowned out by the consumer noise of stereotype. Policymakers hear from constituents who view all riders as reckless or self-indulgent, not as commuters or responsible citizens. The industry in turn leans into the very images that drive sales: the outlaw, the rebel, the weekend warrior. Real riders, those who treat riding as a craft and a skill to be honed, are left without a public identity. The conversation about motorcycles in America becomes about pride and posturing, not competence or community. This narrative does not just shape the bikes people buy, it shapes the laws, the infrastructure, and the very possibility of progress. Harley-Davidson and Indian have built their empires on a promise: the open road, the rumble of a V-twin, and a sense of belonging to something timeless. But behind the chrome and leather, the business model is frozen in the past. Industry analysts point out that most American motorcycle research and development dollars still chase nostalgia, replicating the look and feel of the 1950s, catering to buyers who remember Easy Rider, not tomorrow's commuter. Investor calls and internal presentations focus on brand legacy and the core baby boomer market, not the next generation of urban riders or the technology that keeps them safe. When Harley canceled the Bronx 975 and the Street 500, both aimed at new, younger city-based riders, it was not for lack of interest. Dealers had waiting lists. But the projects did not fit the heritage playbook. Instead, the industry doubled down on what is familiar: heavyweight cruisers, endless accessory catalogs, and marketing that sells a lifestyle over practicality. Paul Yeager, a longtime motorcycle industry council analyst, puts it bluntly: the core business is selling the mythology of the 1950s to retirees, not equipping young commuters or first-time riders with safe, affordable options. While other markets invest in lightweight, approachable, and technologically advanced bikes, the American industry keeps its gaze fixed on the rearview mirror. The result is a gap, not just in technology, but in relevance. Riders looking for a safe, affordable entry point are left with few choices. The message is clear. If you want to ride in America, you are buying into a fantasy, not a future. While American manufacturers pour resources into chrome, nostalgia, and ever larger engines, the rest of the world is quietly moving ahead. Riders in Europe and Japan can walk into a showroom and choose from dozens of affordable bikes packed with advanced safety features, traction control, cornering ABS, quick shifters, and ride modes tailored to rain or rough roads. These technologies are not reserved for high-end models. They are standard even on commuter bikes under 500 cubic centimeters. Traction control keeps tires planted during sudden acceleration or on slick pavement, while cornering ABS allows safe, hard braking even when leaned over. That is a lifesaver on unpredictable streets. German and Italian brands have made these features common, and Japanese makers like Yamaha and Honda offer them on everything from city scooters to mid-sized tourers. In the US, these options are rare and often priced out of reach. Most American bikes, especially those from legacy brands, still rely on basic ABS if it is offered at all. Industry analysts say the gap is growing. As Paul Yeager puts it, the global market is moving towards safer, smarter motorcycles, but the US industry is stuck selling yesterday's technology. Riders here are left behind. The result is a market that denies American riders the same tools that have proven to reduce crashes and save lives elsewhere. The technology exists, but the industry's priorities keep it out of reach for the average rider. A new American motorcycle often costs between $15,000 and $30,000 before a single mile is ridden. That number climbs fast. Finance managers encourage buyers to roll in thousands more for chrome, pipes, GPS, and extended warranties. The industry calls it lifestyle, but on paper it is a steady drain. Within 3 years, many big cruisers lose 30 to 40% of their value. A $22,000 bike can drop to $13,000 on the used market, even if it has barely been ridden. Insurance for large displacement machines is expensive, and premiums spike for new riders. Add in the cost of branded gear and accessories, jackets, boots, matching helmets, and the total outlay can rival a new car. The money spent on image and add-ons is money not spent on what actually matters: protective equipment and advanced training. Few riders budget for a $500 skills clinic after a down payment and months of loan payments. The industry's business model pushes you to invest in appearance over ability. The result is a cycle where buyers are locked into long-term payments for bikes that depreciate quickly and offer little real-world utility. Riders end up with less flexibility to invest in the gear or coaching that could save their lives. In the end, the industry profits from every accessory and every upgrade, while the average rider is left with a shrinking bank account and a skill set that never had a chance to grow. The cost is not just financial, it is personal, and it is paid every time a rider faces a situation their training never covered. A 400 cubic centimeter motorcycle is enough. That is not a theory, it is the reality for riders across Europe and Japan, where the vast majority of daily commutes, errands, and weekend trips happen on machines that American dealerships call starter bikes. The numbers back it up. In the US, the median one-way commute is under 12 miles, and even at the 95th percentile, you are rarely looking at more than 25 miles each way. Modern 300 cubic centimeter and 400 cubic centimeter bikes cruise at highway speeds, carry a week's groceries, and handle city traffic or rural highways with ease. For 95% of what riders actually do, short trips, solo rides, the occasional passenger, there is no practical need for anything bigger. In the hands of a skilled trainer, a lightweight bike becomes a tool for building real ability. Smaller displacement lets you master low speed control, emergency stops, and tight cornering without the intimidation or risk of a heavy, overpowered machine. This is not just about comfort, it is about creating habits that keep you alive. Riders in Italy, Germany, and Japan spend years perfecting their technique on 125 cubic centimeter bikes and 250 cubic centimeter bikes before ever touching a 1-liter bike. The result is fewer crashes, higher skill, and a culture that respects mastery over muscle. Normalizing the small bike is not about settling for less. It is about giving yourself the best chance to become the rider you think you are, one who is in control, not just along for the ride. Skill is not a gift. Riders who survive decades in the saddle do not rely on luck or bravado. They drill the essentials until reaction replaces panic. Emergency braking from 30 miles per hour, swerving around a sudden obstacle, and holding a steady line through a tight corner are not advanced tricks. They are weekly workouts for riders who take competence seriously. An advanced trainer will tell you to set up cones in an empty lot, practice hard stops, low-speed figure eights, and rapid counter-steering. If you cannot stop in under 60 feet from 30 miles per hour, you are gambling with your life every time a car pulls out. If your low-speed balance feels shaky, you have not mastered the basics. Street-focused courses like Total Control and Ride Like a Pro have shown that structured practice can cut crash risk by up to 40%. Yet most American riders never return for a second lesson. The difference between a close call and a hospital stay is measured in muscle memory, not horsepower. The system tells you the certificate is enough. Real riders know better. Skill fades without use. The only way to keep it sharp is to demand more from yourself than the system demands from you. Make drills part of your routine. Treat every ride as practice. Competence is not a destination, it is the price of survival. Changing public perception starts with what riders do every day. Make perception visible by choosing actions that speak louder than stereotypes. Wearing full gear, regardless of weather or peer pressure, signals that skill and safety matter more than image. Gear is not about fashion, it is a statement about priorities. When riders show up in high-visibility jackets, armored pants, and proper helmets, they challenge old stereotypes and set a new standard for what responsible riding looks like. Be the example of responsible behavior. Organizing local rides that welcome all types of bikes and all levels of experience sends a clear message. The community values inclusion and growth, not just horsepower or chrome. Supporting policies that work, like legalizing lane filtering and advocating for parking incentives, demonstrates that riders are engaged citizens and not outsiders. Raise your voice for practical advocacy. In places like Utah and California, organized advocacy has already led to safer roads and new laws. Those are real examples of change in action. Every rider who models responsible behavior, supports sensible policy, and refuses to play into the squid or pirate caricature chips away at the stigma that holds the community back. Every action counts. Change is contagious. When enough people make skill, safety, and advocacy the norm, the culture shifts, and so does the law. Make change visible by how you ride and how you speak. The next step is simple. Ride like the kind of motorcyclist you want to see on the road, and invite others to join you. Keep it simple and consistent. If you are ready to help rewrite the story, speak up, gear up, and demand better on the street and at the ballot box. Be part of the movement to rewrite the culture. Right now, American riders face risks that no amount of passion or freedom can offset, because the system treats skill as optional and safety as an afterthought. With every new bike sold and every shortcut taken, the gap widens between what is possible and what is allowed. Progress does not wait for tradition. The road ahead is only as safe as the standards we demand today. What changes would make you safer? Let us talk below.